Tough to ask my city clerk to call the roll if he's not here.
I'm just making sure.
Yes.
All right, I'll start.
Is he around?
Yeah, we have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
Yep.
Is he on his way? What's it? Yeah. Okay. Mr. Clerk, please call
Commissioner Knight,
Present.
Commissioner Robbins,
Present.
Commissioner Sassi,
Present.
Commissioner Belcheck,
Here.
Mayor LaGrand.
present,
We have
and
a quorum.
I will note that I expect our final colleague to join us late, so that the record can reflect that he's not, I believe, absent.
Do we need to excuse
Yeah,
Commissioner Purdue then?
I make a motion to excuse Commissioners Purdue and Kilgore.
So move.
Support.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Let's see, could our interpreter please come up? So for these meetings, we do not have interpreters in multiple languages, but we do at least in Spanish. And so if anyone wants to make public comments or needs help with an interpreter during the course of the meeting, and if you could repeat that in Spanish, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hola, buen día a todos. Lamentablemente no tenemos traducción para todos los idiomas, pero tenemos interpretación en español. Si usted desea hacer un comentario público, limítese por favor a 3 minutos. Déjeme saber si necesita interpretación. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. One other comment I'll make, and this is because of some public feedback. If anyone in the audience or any of our commenters is visually impaired and needs to tell us of that, we'll try to identify ourselves by name as we make our comments. Thank you.
Muy bien, si alguien necesita algún tipo de asistencia visual o auditiva, por favor déjenos saber. También le podemos dar ese acomodo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is the moment for a public comment on agenda items. Anyone who's interested in making public comments can come to the front, and the decorum notes are up on the wall, and you can have up to 3 minutes to give us feedback. Seeing no one, I will close public comment and move to approval of the minutes. I would like a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. Mr. Clerk, petitions and communications.
First one, communication received from Chris Cameron regarding her resignation from the Public Safety Committee.
That's referred to Committee on Appointments.
Communication received from Nathaniel Khalifi, attorney with Vesper Walkers, including an appeal of FOIA decision for request PR 2025-103.
Received and filed.
Communication received from State Representative Carol Glanville expressing support for Dnipro, Ukraine, to transition from a friendship city to an official sister city.
Received and filed.
Communication received from Sky Atchison regarding a redesign of the Downtown Development Authority, Downtown Improvement District, and Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc.
Received and filed.
Communication received from Scott Atchison regarding new boundaries for Rosa Parks Circle Plaza for construction of a year-round information center.
Received and filed.
Communication received from Ross Jones, including an appeal to a denial of a FOIA request.
Received and filed.
Communication received from the Grand Rapids Chamber, Building Owners and Managers Association, and Commercial Alliance of Realtors on the draft climate adaptation and action plan.
Received and filed. Moving on to reports. Mr. Clerk, I believe you have a report for us.
Yes. Yeah, the city clerk presents the 2025 Local Officers Compensation Commission Determination Report.
Received and filed.
And so let me give a little bit more background on this. So in our ordinances, in order to set the salaries for elected officials, which is the mayor, city commissioners, and comptroller, a appointed local officers compensation commission meets, and they meet every the winter/spring of every 2 years. So they did their work in March of 2025 to set the salaries for them for elected officials for 26 and 27. Their recommendation or their determination for this one, and this was reviewed by the law office as well, is they are going to set those percentages or whatever the pay rates that will match the non-represented. Right now, we are in negotiations between labor units and the city, and then when those salary ordinances come before in negotiations, then there will be a salary ordinance for the non-represented that sometimes is somewhat near where the represented classes are. And so they said for whatever those first 2 years of that contract, then the elected officials will meet that. So it's a little different than how it has been in the past. So it's kind of an unknown thing right now. So the City Commission has two options. One is to accept it as is, and by silence means acceptance, or it takes 2/3 of the City Commission to reject it. And if it's rejected, then it doesn't go back to the LOCC, nothing happens, and then the same pay will stay there for the next 2 years until the LOCC convenes again in 2027. So just want to make sure that you're aware how that is, and if there's any questions, or if there's a feel by more than 2/3 of this body to take it up at another date, this would be the time.
Okay.
But I haven't heard, I sent out an email and I haven't heard anything.
Okay, that'll be received and filed.
Second one is Comptroller's warrant report for the period of March 11, 2025 through March 24, 2025, in the amount of $33,543,231.30, and the monthly travel report.
Received and filed.
And finally, the Treasurer's report for period of March 8, 2025 through April 2, 2025.
Received and filed. That takes us to our consent agenda, and as I always like to remind folks, these are items that passed unanimously out of committees. Those committees are largely viewable on our increasingly effective city website, which has clips of various committees' work. Anything that rose to the level of needing further discussion could be pulled from that agenda, or anything which doesn't pass by unanimous vote axiomatically is not present in that agenda. So I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
That moves us on to items removed from consent. We have one item up for consideration.
It's a resolution providing for the publication of and setting a date to consider a proposed ordinance regarding section 1.46 of chapter 3 of title 1 of the Code of City Ordinance, or City of Grand Rapids, entitled Voting Precincts, to update the boundaries of certain precincts.
And we had considerable discussion about this in committee this morning.
Motion first.
So moved.
So moved.
Support.
Considerable discussion this morning. Any further discussion commissioners want to have at this point? Commissioner Robbins?
Yeah, I've got a little background knowledge here provided by our city clerk's office. So back in 2018, we had proposal 3. In 2022, we had proposal 2, both which made some changes to the Michigan Constitution enshrining various voting rights. So that would include things like applying for an absentee ballot without reason, as well as the 9 days of early voting before a federal and statewide election. So since those have passed, there have been a number of cities that have rearranged their precincts. So the city's election commission has the authority to change precinct boundaries. The city commission has the authority to approve the polling locations within the said precincts. So like was mentioned, we had a pretty robust discussion about that at our committee of the whole meeting this morning. So highly would encourage going to watch that and hear the comments that were made there.
And that passed with one dissenting voice. So I don't know if Commissioner Perdue, you want to weigh in here?
Absolutely. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone here and watching now and later. So today, what's ahead of us is to change the voting precincts in the city of Grand Rapids. And that is one of our core duties as local government, is to run elections with integrity and to ensure voter access. It is my strong belief that what is proposed to us today will actually reduce voter access in the city of Grand Rapids. In this proposal, there are a lot of really good proposed changes that I want to give the city clerk and his office credit for leading, ensuring that all voting locations have great accessibilities, ensuring that every single precinct or neighborhood has a decent amount of proximity to their voting location, making sure that whenever your voting information is updated or your location is changed, there is a clear process to make sure you get that notification, you get an updated card, and to ensure that every voting location also aligns with city, county, and state lines. So there are a lot of really good items as part of this proposal. However, I have concerns about the proposed reduction in the number of voting precincts in the city of Grand Rapids with this proposal. It is clear that access to voting sites matters, and to bolster turnout and to make sure we all have access to the voting booth to really support representative government in our democracy, especially in times like now. In the November 2024 election, the vast majority of Grand Rapidians showed up to vote on Election Day. Not early voting, not absentee. We saw some major upticks in those form of votings, which is great, but the majority of Grand Rapidians are still relying on Election Day to show up and to cast their vote and to participate. This proposal will eliminate 6 voting sites completely. And in a time where we have been making a lot of progress around voter access in Michigan, I believe this is a step backwards. We should really be increasing the number of voting sites, making it easier and more convenient than ever, not reducing them for administrative purposes. And so today I propose an amendment to not reduce or to reduce the number of precincts, not by the full number that's being proposed, but a middle ground that ensures that we can still achieve administrative efficiencies while also protecting voter access. None of my colleagues on this day has supported that amendment. And so I'm the lone vote. I do not support this change. This is the last opportunity for you all to reconsider. I think the residents of this city, the voters today and tomorrow, will appreciate our due diligence to ensure voting access. Election day access is especially important for first-time voters. It's especially important for those who might not vote in every election, but because of everything that's happening locally and nationally, they are saying, wow, I do need to get involved. I do need to be engaged. And we will make it harder for them to do so if this ordinance change goes forward. So that is the reason why I'll be voting no on this. I invite my colleagues to join me, and I invite you all here in the audience and elsewhere listening to write in, to show up, to say, this is not right, this is not what we want. Today's vote will only say, yes, we want to move it forward to vote on at a later date. So this is not the final vote. So that means that there's still time for you all to organize and to mobilize and to tell my colleagues here that we should not eliminate 6 precinct voting sites in the city of Grand Rapids in order to protect the right and the access to vote. And so I will be voting no to move this forward. And if it does move forward, I ask you all to join me in calling for action and change amongst my colleagues so that we can protect your access to the ballot box. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Perdue. And I think we all certainly appreciate your concern and share your concerns about access to voting. That being said, I want to point out a couple things. One is this is not our last time to vote on this. We're voting to proceed forward, and we still have an opportunity to modify this plan, and that was part of the discussion this morning, specifically a question that was asked of our city clerk. So it is important that if any of you look at this plan and have specific concerns about specific voting locations, that you make your voice heard. That being said, I want to give an example of one place where I personally think that a reduction actually will increase access, and that is part of this proposal is to have a voting location in the new hub building on Kalamazoo, which is very visible, very accessible, and that would replace 2 less visible and less accessible places in my opinion at least. And so it's not. I think that, and I certainly welcome Commissioner Perdue or any of my colleagues coming up with specific sites that they have concerns about. I think we're all continuing to engage on this. The good news is that voting has become much, much more accessible and available due to legislative changes. And because of that, it is true that a majority of people voted day of, but that was it wasn't a vast majority. It was a majority. But everyone in our community is now really given opportunities to vote early and given opportunities to vote absentee, and people are availing themselves of those opportunities by the thousands. So a lot of the plan here is to actually take. Some of you may have been in precincts where there are voting locations where 2 precincts are voting in the same voting location. So a lot of what's happening here is consolidating so that there's 1 line rather than 2 lines in a location. There is going to be some reduction, and so I think we have to look at making sure, particularly in those areas where people want to walk to their polling locations, that access not be limited. The last thing that I'll at least point out is that I think our long-term consistent with our values and valuing democracy in the city, our long-term goal should be to do our mapping based on eligible voters and not registered voters, because I think that, I personally think that having not made the choice to register yet doesn't mean that we shouldn't build on the expectation that you not just vote, but that you register and then vote. So I think that we can do better on our modeling. I also think it's worth knowing, for the public's sake, this plan could be changed next year, so it could be changed the year after. This is not it's not like we're taking a decennial census. We're looking at the information available to us and making plans based on that. So,
I need a comment.
go ahead.
I just want to make a clarification. A majority of the voters voted before Election Day, absentee and early voting combined. A plurality of voters voted on Election Day. So 44,000 out of the 97,000 voted on Election Day in a precinct. So it wasn't majority, it was a plurality. A majority of the voters voted before Election Day. I just want to make sure we're clear on what majority of those voting and their methods used.
Thanks for the clarification. So any further comments? Commissioner Belcheck.
I didn't get a chance to weigh in as fully as I would have liked to earlier this morning, and this is a great opportunity. It's the reason we bring things off of consent agenda so we can have a conversation. I was unable to process and support the amendment in time, but I am wanting us to consider continuing this conversation about access. I do not want people to think that any one of us, but myself, speaking for myself particularly, I agree that voter access is incredibly important, that we should be looking for ways to increase it at every opportunity. I do think that one of the things I heard this morning was that the Election Commission made the precinct changes. Am I correct in understanding that, Clerk? Okay. And that our job, we have an ordinance that will come in front of us to make the official change of what the precinct locations would be. Now, there are questions I have, but one of those questions could be, if we reduce the number of precincts, does that mean we can't do 2 precinct locations? I know there's cost to that, for voting. So one of the questions that came up during our conversation earlier was how many people are served in these different precincts. So I'm looking forward to what the city clerk pulls up for the proposed new precincts and how many people are being served by them. If they're going to be disproportionate, some are 1,000, some are 2,000, some are 4,000. We should be looking at that. We should be looking at how things are growing. But it may be worth discussing or reviewing who is able to make comment when precinct changes at the Election Commission meeting may have happened. I don't know what that process is. Would you like to speak to that at all?
Sure. So the Election Commission does not meet on a regular basis. We meet as needed basis. So one of the things that the Election Commission also is tasked to do is appointing the election inspectors. So there's a certain time in state law that we have to meet together to do that. And then there's also time to review boundaries in that. And so it's not a standing meeting time like we meet twice a month here. It's as needed, and then it's posted and open to the public with a public comment time. Now, is there a lot of attendance? No. But that's the process for that. So the state law allows the Election Commission to set the boundaries, like I said this morning. So they set the boundaries. The city commission sets the polling location. So, and we of course are bringing that recommendation usually as staff to say, this is a polling location we think would be there, or like Stocking School closes, so we got to come up with a new location, and we do the like. What this ordinance does is states the total number. Doesn't set boundaries, doesn't set anything. It just sets the base. So right now, the ordinance at one time said 100, and then the ordinance was amended to say 76, 77, and then it said 76. Now it says 74, and this would set it to say, change the number from 74 to 59 is the recommendation. So as far as the boundary lines, that's up to the Election Commission to decide. So it's unknown if setting that number of 59 is in the purview of the City Commission, but since we have it in the ordinance, this is why I brought it forward.
So that was going to be my next question, is if we were to change the number, that doesn't necessarily change the precincts. That's been what happens with the election commission and the boundaries has already been done, or is there still?
So we did a boundary change that came for a lower number. So that was work done asking this commission to go to that number to make it in our ordinances. Quite possibly, I could have brought an ordinance that rescinded that ordinance because we could still do that work. But I figured all of us having this conversation is better. So yeah, if you move this number, if you agree with the recommendation and move it to 59, it's 59. If you decide to move it to 65, we can move it to 65, but the election commission is going to draw the boundaries for that, and then we'll make a request for the commission. So it could be. So it's up to the election commission to decide that. And that just is for the audience that's here, the election commission is myself, the city attorney, and the city assessor. And that's inside of our charter.
And they are public meetings where it's posted?
That's correct.
Public Opens Meeting Act, all that stuff?
Yep, correct.
Commissioner Perdue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Great, thank you. I just want to provide a little bit more clarity because this was good conversation. I recognize a lot of folks weren't here earlier. So just to be more specific, as the city clerk just said, we currently have 74 precincts in the city of Grand Rapids, 74 places for folks to vote. The ask today, what's in front of us today, is to come back and vote on the number of precincts we have. And it's proposed to reduce the number of precincts or voting sites from 74 to 59. That's a reduction in 15 voting sites. However, 9 of those 15 are sites that are in the same building. So you're from 2 different precincts, you actually vote in the same church. And so the city clerk has proposed to eliminate 9 of those, merge 18 of those into 9. So to summarize, 15 precincts are being proposed to be eliminated. 9 of those, I think, have great justification for efficiency, and it wouldn't change people's proximity and their convenience to be able to vote. However, there's an additional 6 that will be eliminated altogether, and that is where my concern lies. So my amendment earlier, my proposed amendment was not to reduce the number of voting locations to 59, but to maintain those 6 that were proposed to be completely eliminated and to only change the number to 65. And again, there was no support on that. Part of the justification that I heard this morning for why we shouldn't do this is because we could save $20,000 by not operating those 15 precincts. I do not think $20,000 is worth the possibility of disenfranchisement and restricting voter access. So again, I ask the public, if this is a concern of yours, to join me in advocating for an increase in the number of voting locations from what is proposed here. We did make a few asks that the city clerk will come with additional information that will help me and help you all understand the implications of this. One thing that he committed to bring back to us is the number of people that will have new voting locations because of this change. So that will give us a sense of the impact. He also committed to come back with the number of registered voters that will be in each precinct before this proposal and after this proposal. Again, I think what we'll find is that the precincts grow bigger and the access to voting locations becomes more difficult and less convenient. Again, access to voting is so important for a participatory democracy and to ensure that we can have true representation here. While voter turnout for the whole city was 64% in this last election, we still had many parts of the city that had less than 40% turnout. There's a lot of work to be done. We should be adding more precincts. We should make it easier to vote. These comments do not negate all the hard work that's been done on education, on access, on all the state law changes, and all the great work that our city clerk office has done to improve our voting process and improve wait times and things of that nature. But it is a simple ask to protect your access and our neighbors' access to the voting booth now and in the future. So once those educational materials are released, along with what was already available in today's meeting package, I invite you all to join me and advocate and lobby your commissioners to support and maintain your access to the voting booth.
Commissioner Isasi?
Thank you, Mayor. Wasn't going to share any thoughts because I feel like I shared a number of thoughts, but after hearing your comments, Commissioner Perdue, I feel like I need to make sure people know that I am not working to disenfranchise your vote. I take your vote very seriously. I think our elections have been run extremely well here in this city, and we heard today from the city clerk about wait times. We've also probably should note that we were early to the game in terms of, we did early voting one cycle before we had to, I believe, city clerk, is that right? Yeah. We did drop boxes?
We did drop boxes and we did prepaid postage on absentees before.
So I feel it's necessary for me, for somebody who has been very focused on election and election support and connecting with different groups, to say that my desire is not to disenfranchise your vote. My desire is to make sure that you have a quality experience when you go into the polling places. You heard from the city clerk talk about sort of the differences regarding same day, early, and the no reason absentee voting. I think this is an example where we worked with our state government, and I'm glad, I'm glad the people saw that this was the opportunity to move forth into new technology and different ways to vote, and then also what we were able to do in terms of those experiences. So in terms of early voting in this last cycle, we saw many organizations get involved, encourage people to come out, make an event of it. For me, my parents always encouraged us to vote. They worked in public school system, so it was an activity. It wasn't something on the to-do list, but it was something that we were proud to do. And so I think those are cultural shifts. So I think it is a good plan. I'm open to I think I'm open to hearing these other data points that the city clerk has. I think the city clerk came with quite a few data points as it relates to, sort of what is the entirety of this plan, and then what is the sort of the ladder of the plan. I would also say there's some realities of locations hosting polling sites, whether it be access because of events that they have, parking that exists, accessibility. And so even in a city of our size, that does present some limitations. And so how can we have quality sites? So for me, I want you all to hear that from me. That is not what I'm trying to do. I'm open to any discussion. I think that is how the debate should happen. And I appreciate the efforts of the city clerk and the city attorney and the city assessor who, look regularly at these pieces, are part of this body, are there on election night to certify the vote, so are of the highest integrity to make sure that these our election results are held in that regard, and I trust them with these efforts as well. Thank you.
Commissioner Rollins.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I, too, wasn't planning on saying anything, but wanted to reiterate everything my colleague just said. I have no interest in voter disenfranchisement or making it harder for people to vote. I don't think there's anybody around this table that does. I said this earlier in our meeting. Our city clerk is one of the highest accoladed city clerks in the entire country. His whole role exists to run elections that are high quality, efficient, and that maximize the ability for every single person in this city who's eligible to vote to come out and do so. He made a recommendation with the election commission that was held unanimously alongside our city assessor and city attorney. I know anytime people talk about changes in voter process, boundaries, I think it's easy to capitalize on that and instill a sense of fear or give the impression that this is going to negatively impact the ability for people to vote. I don't think that is the entire case, and I would just encourage people to look at this. Your precinct might change, my precinct might change. That doesn't mean I'm going to have to go walk, drive, bike farther to vote to. So I think the recommendation that was made is very thoughtful. I think it takes into account a lot of the increases in voter access that we've been given through recent amendments to the Michigan Constitution. I don't have any concerns with those. I'm always happy to talk about more ways that we can increase and improve the accessibility for people to vote in our city, but I don't feel that this plan is going to negatively impact that.
And I will call for a vote on the resolution. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Hey.
Resolution passes. That brings us to an empty category, which is city. Oh, I'm sorry. Next, we have to talk about ordinances to be adopted.
Sure, we have a salary ordinance amending Section 3.2 of Ordinance 2022-40, new classification, benefits analyst.
Commissioner Knight.
Yes, support.
Support.
This classification just replaces the leave and accommodation analyst classification that was approved by the City Commission in December of 2024. It's intended to enhance the administration and strategic management of employee benefits programs, ensuring efficiency, compliance, and employee satisfaction. They'll play a critical role in supporting the city's human resource department by analyzing benefits data, managing vendor relationships, ensuring compliance with federal and state regulations, and assisting employees with benefits-related inquiries.
Thank you. Any discussion? City.
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Knight,
Yes.
Commissioner Belcheck,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgore,
Yes.
Commissioner Asasi,
Yes.
Commissioner Robbins,
Yes.
Commissioner Purdue,
Yes.
Mayor LaGrand.
Yes. Motion passes.
I need a motion for immediate.
Right. Roll call vote,
So moved.
voice vote for immediate effect. All in favor of immediate effect, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That brings us to our empty set, which is City Commission resolutions, of which there are none this week. And then next, Ms. Bohach is going to come up for 2 public hearings. The first is going to be a discussion of the Neighborhood Investment Plan funding recommendations in the order of $7.5 million.
Good afternoon.
Clicker's in the drawer.
It's in the drawer. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Let's start over. Good afternoon. So I am just going to provide a little bit of context to open up this public hearing. So this is something that we do on an annual basis in terms of allocating resources that we have available for housing and community development activities. We really have a requirement for an annual action plan that is driven by federal resources. So in our neighborhood investment plan, it's how we roll that all up. And so on March 25th, we provided to you those recommendations publicly, and that started our public comment process. But to give you more context for how this works, we have a 5-year plan called the Housing and Community Development Plan that is required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and that provides the framework for our projects and activities that we do over a 5-year period to establish goals and objectives to guide investments during that time frame. It covers periods of July 1 of 2021 through June 30th of 2026. And then on an annual basis, we put together these actions in terms of projects and investments that are carried out from July 1 through June 30th of each year, through each year of that 5-year plan. So the neighborhood investment plan is our framework for making those investments. And again, that came to you on March 25th, and it was a total of $7.5 million, but it encompassed the Community Development Block Grant, the Home Investment Partnerships, and the Emergency Solutions Grants funds that are part of that requirement from the federal government. And then we also, at the same time, allocate justice assistance grants, the opioid settlement funds that come into the city. And then this year, in addition to that, were Affordable Housing Fund dollars that came from your Affordable Housing Fund board and allowed us to make those recommendations all at one time. We look at the neighborhood investment plan through 8 outcome areas that align with our consolidated plan and the needs identified for through the community need process in that plan. And it also aligns with the city's strategic plan. So when we implement the neighborhood investment plan process, we do a variety of outreach and education long before we actually open it up for applications. And we then do an application process that starts with a notice of intent to apply. Then we bring in invite for full applications. We had 121 projects, applications requesting more than $25 million for the $7.5 million that's available. So it becomes very complicated, and there are, of course, organizations that aren't funded that would like to be funded, so it's a very difficult process. And then the recommendations, again, address those needs in the Housing Community Development Consolidated Plan, the strategic plan, and then we look to maximize resources from all of those funding sources. And by doing it at the same time, all in one process, it allows us, because they all have different eligibility requirements, but it allows us to look at it more in a big picture and try to maximize the resources where they can best be applied for those projects with the rules and regulations that come along with them. In that presentation on March 25th, we also provided more detail about these 8 outcome areas. And so this is just a summation of the broad outcome areas and how much was recommended for investments and projects within that and what they, the outcome that they're trying to address. And also in those recommendations, we provided to you contingency provisions so that because our dollar amounts have not been confirmed by the federal government in terms of an actual award letter yet, we've built in contingency plans for CDBG, home, and ESG that basically indicates that if we get more money, this is what the plan is to allocate those additional dollars, and if we get less, this is what the plan is. And so those recommendations included those contingency provisions. And then we are at close to the final stage, but not yet the final stage, and that's the public comment opportunities. And again, this the comment period opened on March 25th, and it will close on April 24th. Today is the public hearing to address in front of you any oral comments that would like to be made, but we will also accept and continue to accept written comments through April 24th, and those can be provided to the Community Development Department at communitydev@grcity.us via email. And any comments that we receive in writing, since you're not going to be able to, they're not being spoken here today, will be forwarded to the City Commission so that you can have those for consideration before we come to you with final approval for awards. And that is intended to, or is planned to be scheduled for your approval on May 13th, and it allows us then to submit all of our documents to the federal government in order to get our actual awards.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Are we doing the public hearing first?
No, we'll have public comment after discussion.
Thank you for your hard work, I guess, and I look forward to this. I know that the federal funding is kind of always, especially right now, a question mark, but it's great that people are forwarding and participating in the process. Sorry to jump ahead.
Commissioner Sassi.
Thank you for the overview, Ms. Bohach. And I'll thank my colleagues that were the subcommittee, Commissioner Kilgore and Commissioner Robbins. I was writing some notes down, so I might have missed this point, but I do want to say to anybody who's new on the commission that there are individuals who their application maybe was incomplete or it didn't meet the guidelines, and there's a lot of technical assistance that goes to just talk to individuals about maybe why it didn't move forward to the next process. I know we're talking about those who made it to the process, but I think that's another form of community engagement that the Community Development Department does, and so I wanted to highlight that as well. I appreciate those efforts.
Any further comments? I did have one question for you, Ms. Bohach. So there's been a lot of discussion, and you've certainly been tuned into the 100 and 100 project, which is trying to help people with persistent needs in housing who have, multiple challenges, let's put it that way. And I know that 100 and 100 group is actively identified the need for an advocate for those individuals as they go out and try to get housing, sort of a landlord liaison. That's a one-person position, and I don't know if the community COC, which is the Continuum of Care organization, or any other nonprofits has approached you about perhaps funding from this pool of money for that need. And I know that you have an application process and a screening process, and we're very far along here, but I just wanted to at least ask that because it struck me that the opioid settlement money obviously deals with it's money because we have a drug problem and it's largely opioids, and that's the folks who are being helped by the 100 and 100. Really, a lot of them are in that need category, and then of course the Affordable Housing Fund, dealing with long-term stable housing for people who have challenges. It's a particularly hard group to house over time. So I don't know if you could speak to, is there any opportunity to shift money over to that use at this point, and what would that look like if it were possible? So
my response would be no, because we have a process that's well advertised, that we have a lot of applicants that come in and go through the process of putting in an application. We advertised that this is going to happen way back in October. We hold workshops, so there's lots of opportunity to put in an application, a formal application, and go through that process. So I would be concerned about the integrity of the process. It doesn't mean that that the City Commission can't choose to make an investment in a different way to support work, but through this particular allocation and the amount of money that we have put into this process, my recommendation would be no, to not do that, because it, we want to maintain the integrity of a process, especially when we've turned others away who may have been interested in applying. So, and are getting funded. And we do have a lot of projects that support, homelessness and rental housing and things that aren't being recommended at this time due to the lack of the resources that are put into this process. So that would be my response. Yep. But I'm not the City Commission, so those are just my recommendations.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Seeing no other comments or questions from the commission, is there anyone, if anyone in the audience wants to have public comment on this item, are you welcome to come up to the microphone at this point? Otherwise, we'll move to our next public hearing.
I'm sure there's lots of people here.
Seeing no one, we got one.
Mayor,
Sorry.
I know there's some folks that we talked to prior to this meeting. I just want to make sure that they know that this is their opportunity to speak to funding and contracts as part of the public hearing if you would like.
Right. Thank you, Commissioner.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Haynes. I'm the Executive Director of the Fair Housing Center of West Michigan and a proud First Ward resident. Our mission at the Fair Housing Center is to prevent and eliminate illegal housing discrimination, to ensure equal housing opportunity, and to promote inclusive communities. So what we do is we investigate complaints of housing discrimination. We can do it based on victims who contact us, or we can do it systemically where we have we decide we want to look at something, some issue. We also really try to lead with a handshake. So we do a lot of education and outreach. We try to help people understand their rights and obligations under the law. We do technical assistance for landlords. We'll review marketing materials. We really want to avoid problems before they happen. So with the new source of income protection that was just put into place on April 2nd, we're doing a year-long blast to try to educate landlords about why participating with the voucher program makes sense, why it's a good thing, what the law requires them to do. But we really try to lead with that handshake. We cover 38 counties. However, about 50% of our work is actually in the city of Grand Rapids. We started here. In 2024, our 10-person staff was very busy with education and outreach. We participated in 50 outreach events, 115 fair housing trainings. We distributed 39,861 fair housing materials, and 351,000 people received fair housing education, a touch point with us last year. With enforcement, we took more than 2,000 phone calls last year. We made 1,118 community referrals. If we're not the right call, we want to make sure that the next call someone makes is the right call. We had 316 fair housing allegations that we processed, 264 fair housing cases that we managed. Most of our complaints, about 40%, are disability status, 25% are race or color, and 9% last year were national origin. We get $75,000 from the city of Grand Rapids. Our budget is $1.2 million. So the city funds us at 6.25% of our budget, yet it's about 50% of our activities. We've been able to make this work because we've had federal funding, about $750,000 in federal funding, but that's at risk right now. We had one contract terminated on February 27th for $100,000. We litigated it, we got a TRO. The TRO just got lifted yesterday, or stayed, so we're back with the termination. We still have 3 other contracts. One ends May 31st, it's for $425,000. That's the enforcement grant. The education and outreach grant ends on May 31st, that's $125,000. We have one other one for $115,000 that will end in November. After that, it's a cliff. We have heard nothing from HUD about what's going to happen. So if we want to maintain the level of fair housing services in the city of Grand Rapids, we need you to consider upping the amount. We're so grateful for that $75,000 and that great partnership with the city. We can't say enough about the partnership, but we're in dire need. Thank you.
Thanks for the update. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, everyone. Regent Thomas with Seeds of Promise. Just want to thank everyone on the dais, our police officers here today, and our community members. We're in a unique community and hard times for sure right now. We're here in regards to a very serious issue, one that really speaks to the heart of Mr. Washington and the diocese focus on equity. Regarding any decision that revokes an award to Seeds of Promise for $55,000 for crime and violence intervention, we feel is a tragedy. Circumstances surrounding the work with our Community Development Department and decisions made to terminate Seeds of Promise's public safety agreement are unjustified and are another sample of the inequity that many of our organizations and residents face in this beautiful town. I'm going to read a message from our city manager. The city's core values of accountability, collaboration, customer service, equity, innovation, and sustainability remain the foundation for the plan we are charged. Remains the foundation for the plan and are unchanged. However, we have enhanced our sustainability focus by adding more emphasis on climate resiliency. When it comes to equity, this is particularly important as we continue to embrace equity in every aspect of this plan, our city's strategic plan. We must ensure that all people are respected and valued, and we need to work together to eliminate the disparate impacts of communities of color due to systematic and institutional injustices. Not one of these outcomes will be successful. No outcome in our city's strategic plan can possibly be successful if it fails to advance a more equitable future. We request an immediate review of all decisions made out of the Community Development Department that has affected our funding for this year, prevents us from applying for funding next year, based on some of the strategic work that we've did for more than 20 years, and specifically over the past 3. That is in alignment with the city and our state's mission of equity. We know many are selling, we're buying high right now. We request an immediate review of all of those decisions in regards to the Community Development Department's any decisions that led to Seeds of Promise not being able, again, to finish and complete our contract this year, receive the award for $55,000 for CVI funding, and apply for NIP housing and funding for next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Hello, friends. Mark from Grand Rapids. What you heard at this public hearing, I cannot trust this, not with the orange felon and his regime manning this country. You can ask for it, but I doubt it's going to happen. Especially when he has that billionaire apartheid cutting everything under the sun. And the reason why you're not hearing from the HUD secretary is this. He's being undermined by the orange felon. So you might not get, so whatever little funding you're talking about, you might not get it. So you better think about this. Because I don't trust Washington with a 10-foot pole. Because these individuals will stop at nothing to get what they want, to please their billionaire buddies and their billionaire cabinet members. But if you do, good luck. Because because it's going to be a long battle. And trust me, these people will stop at nothing to take your money and do whatever they damn well please with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Seeing no further public comment. Oh, sorry. Line of sight problem there.
Come over this way. Good afternoon, Vanessa Epps, 3rd Ward. I got 2 issues. And the first one has to be with that precinct, the change of precinct. What 6 precincts are the ones that's to be eliminated?
You'll have a
that's
chance for
another
that at the
time?
end of, right, there will be public comment at the end of the meeting. This is just about this hearing, so.
Just this hearing
Yep,
only?
No problem.
And, okay, the housing that she just spoke on, okay. I'd like to know how, there's an individual, she's a landlord, however, there's always something that's told to her about getting on a list. And it seems like the city is always going over the same individual, programs, I should say, as those who receive any assistance, when this person has her homes available for those you say you work with, such as the homeless and, possibly the opioid and all that good stuff. However, how can she get on that list? I'm asking.
Ma'am, I'm sure Ms. Bohach will be happy to talk to you after.
So I have to go to that individual in particular, because it appears that there's these programs out here that says, oh, we're out here helping the homeless, and it's always the same particular programs that's offering this, such as Mel Trotter, Dega J, and possibly Pine Rest, those individuals. Then when those persons are coming up and coming to also help with the program and actually do help with the program, they never can seem to get involved. And she said you have workshops and it advertise what, through Facebook or the Grand Rapids Press or however this media is going on. But there's not enough information that's hitting, I should say, those in the, I would say for myself in the 3rd Ward, in that area. And there's a program, Proactive, that she's so active in a little bit of everything, and they get very little funding. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
After you close the hearing.
I think that ends the hearing. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify for the commission. First of all, thank you for the subcommittee who worked on this, the public who spoke to it. But to your question earlier, Ms. Bohach responded to the process that was prior to here, the solicitation of applications, the evaluation of the over 100 so applications that were submitted, and what's before you. If there is a preference by the majority of this commission to either change allocation among strategic priorities or, based on what you heard today, reallocate funding to different groups, this commission at its next meeting or whenever it's back up before us could make amendments to the recommendation and those allocations. I just wanted to clarify that as your prerogative. While that may not be the recommendation of the committee or the staff, it's still the prerogative of the city commission as a whole.
Thank you, City Manager. Good point. So, Ms. Bohach, we have another public hearing.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Are you ready? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. This is a public hearing about the Michigan State Preservation Officer.
Yes, thank you. So this, too, is an annual process that we do where we have the ability to enter into an agreement with the State Historic Preservation Officer. We have projects that require construction and other things that require us to submit something to the state for their review for environmental impact. And this allows us to do some of that review here locally, and so it doesn't take as long. And we have two separate agreements with the state. One is for non-lead hazardous reduction activities that are implemented with the Community Development Block Grant, the Home Investment Partnerships, and the Emergency Solutions Grants. And then we have those that actually are taking action on lead hazards through the Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnerships programs. So again, these are agreements that we have in place, but on an annual basis, we need to bring them to you and have a public hearing for anyone who wants to provide input on any impact that those programs may have on the historic value of properties.
Okay. Any comments from commissioners? No? Anyone in the public wish to make public comment in this part of the hearing? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and this takes us to our second period for public comment. And this is public comment on any item for which the public wishes to be heard. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes total. And if you could identify yourself when you make your comments, that'd be great.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Turn the mic on.
Wow, buttons. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Sheldon Skyver. I'm a resident of the 2nd Ward. It has been a little over 3 years since Officer Christopher Scher murdered Patrick Leoya during what should have been a routine traffic stop. I come before the Commission today to speak not only for Patrick, but for all of those who have suffered at the hands of police here in our city. For Natalie Thompson, whose son was so badly beaten by GRPD with a flashlight that his injuries delayed his high school graduation. For Honesty Hodges, the unarmed 11-year-old who was held at gunpoint by GRPD in 2017. For Mitrell and Martrez Costin, the unarmed 11 and 17-year-old brothers who were also held at gunpoint by GRPD in 2018. For Yilmar Ramos Gomez, who was illegally detained by ICE for 3 days due to a racially motivated tip from a GRPD police chief. For Riley Doggett and Samuel Sterling, both of whom were struck by police vehicles and killed in 2024 within a month from each other. For many of these victims, no charges were ever made against the officers. For them, justice will never be served. Who should they call when the largest danger to their existence is the institution sworn to protect them? While I know that this City Commission has no jurisdiction over a courtroom, they do have jurisdiction to pass policies and enact committees to hold our civil servants accountable for the actions they take while serving the community. Mark Washington established the Office of Oversight and Public Accountability to serve as a liaison between the community and public safety. Commissioners, please let's call this committee what it is, an attempt at appeasement. Section 1.5 of the OPA policy states that within 2 business days of establishing direct contact with a complaint, the OPA shall finalize and submit the completed CIF to the appropriate investigative body. The first body that appears in the list that follows is the City of Grand Rapids Police Department Internal Affairs Unit. How can any trust be established when the department that is perpetrating the abuse is also investigating it? Section 6.4.2 of the OPA policy states that when an officer-involved shooting occurs, OPA personnel are only to enter the marked crime scene if granted authority to enter by the GRPD. Is that a policy that ensures crime scenes won't be disturbed before proper investigation is had? On April 22, 2021, Brandon Davis, director of the OPA, published a letter for immediate release detailing the GRPD's unwillingness to provide evidence regarding a public display of egregious conduct. His letter stated, despite numerous requests, the police department has not provided the OPA with any internal affairs documents, redacted or otherwise, on any case. What good is an oversight committee if the department it oversees is not required to comply? The measures the city have taken to protect our citizens from police violence are not enough. The current system led to the murders of 2 unarmed black men within a month in 2024. It is time for them to be held accountable for the crimes they commit on duty. Commissioners, I ask today that you begin to implement policies supporting community control of the police. Grand Rapids deserves a citizen-elected, not city-appointed board to enact policies restricting and criminalizing police brutality. Without community control, any GRPD officer must be considered a threat to our imminent safety. I make these comments knowing that the Patrick Leoya trial will be occurring after this meeting, and I just want you folks to know that we are watching that trial and we are very passionate about this plea. Thank you.
Mark back. I want to talk about this voting redistricting. Once again, this is another ploy from the orange felon. He is behind all this. This is what he wants. He wants to shrink ballot boxes. He wants to shrink polling. Now, in addition to that,
I would ask that the commission and all the city management take into consideration what the affected community has been requesting for several months now. I would also like to echo the words of Sheldon earlier and ask for community control of the police department. If you cannot trust those who are meant to protect you, if they hinder rather than protect the people's right to free speech, if people don't know whether they're going to walk away from a traffic stop with a ticket or a bullet, then what is the point of having a police department other than to oppress and control and protect the business interests of the wealthy of the city? Thank you for your time. Hi, is it on? Okay. My name is Abigail Nutter. I don't go by that name. I go by Oak. And I do not have anything prepared. I did not intend to speak. This is more of an emotional appeal. I'm doing my best to be engaged and exercise my rights before they are gone, because it feels like they're leaving. I know a lot of what my concerns are about may not have to do specifically with the City Commission. But I'm trying to learn and catch up while I can. But I will speak briefly about GRPD as well, and the documentary that came out. I watched as much as I could before I came here. It does feel a bit like a distraction to release something like that with the trial, the Sure trial coming up. They did mention in the documentary multiple times that a big part of the reason that it's so difficult to find the killer of the 15-year-old boy who was discussed in the documentary is because people will not come forward because they do not trust the police. And in the documentary, they're mentioning that it's because they're worried people don't want to lose their street credit. I am scared to call the police because I don't know if me calling the police when I hear something going on will end up with one of my neighbors being killed or deported. And so as a white person who is Michigan native, I do not trust the Grand Rapids Police myself. And I believe that openness and the way that the Sure trial will be handled will inform whether I think that I was correct or incorrect in feeling that way. And I would also say that the other sensitive note being voting and the SAVE Act, in a time where there's a lot of anxiety around that, if people are paying attention, taking as much consideration as you can with the amount of precincts and what boundaries are maybe or this or that. I am, again, not informed. I mean, I'm a college graduate, but I make sandwiches. Like, this was not on my docket as something to be doing, but I'm trying to take the time. Even though I may not be making the most sense, it is technically my time as a citizen. As someone who has been trying to be active recently, there is also a lot of concern and tension at what are supposed to be legal protests and exercising our First Amendment rights with people who are attempting to work with the police for safety of protesters being arrested for things and having that be blown up. It very much does feel like we do not have our rights unless we are rich. Thank you.
Nancy Haynes again. This is going to come totally out of left field, but I'd just like to talk a little bit about Valley Field, and I wonder what the delay is. I'm a First Ward resident. My son played baseball at Union on that field. My son plays in the International League. My husband plays in the Over 40 League. I just am having a hard time understanding how it could take 2 to 3 years, and millions and millions of dollars to rehab that facility. It's such an important part of the west side of Grand Rapids. And I think, mansions can be built in shorter time frames. And I know it's historic and we want to honor that history, but we also have to be pragmatic. And we need that field to be usable. So I don't know what needs to happen. I feel like I don't know where to get information about what the delay is and why we have to keep raising more and more dollars from private groups to make this happen. But it's the heart of the west side. So if we could get that done, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further comment, I will move on to comments from commissioners. So Commissioner Sassi.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for coming out. It's always kind of cool. I got to meet a few people that spoke today in the elevator. I wanted to just highlight a few things. And David's there in the back, so maybe Nancy, David, and you can connect on some of the pieces on Valleyfield. I don't know. I know a lot of the history of Valleyfield, but I'm sure we want to be able to get that answer for you as well. For those that came, talking, I think, was mentioned about some of the recent protests. And so when city manager and myself and my colleague, Commissioner Knight, met last week, we had some questions too about some of the actions at the protests. And also I think there was a question about, I put forth about use of the unmanned, it should really be unpersoned aerial utility vehicles, or the UADs, because I did get that question. We did get that question to our office. And so those are things that I certainly want to continue to follow up on, especially knowing that, as was stated, there will be the trial with past Officer Scher coming up, and we know that there will be a lot of protests. There are a lot of protests that are occurring. I think the hands-off, we knew that was, or I think people thought it was going to be like 300 to 500 people, and it ended up being about 3,000 people. So thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. I know you brought that up earlier today, and it was a date I didn't know, and also found out it was your birthday too. And so I think we just need to continue to be very proactive. And so I think we'll continue to ask our city manager and others involved in this work to make sure how can we keep that ability to peacefully protest enshrined in those rights. So we also talked about, in the past, what are some of the things that we added to our legislative agenda, and really making sure that we can hold the things that were constitutional. Thank you for that shout out. My husband told me about that, Commissioner. Being able to voice your concerns, whatever they are, and no matter what they are, is certainly important. So I wanted to share that as well. I might be stealing city manager's thunder, but I did see on all the socials that Mr. Brandon Davis was recognized with the national award from the NFBPA. So, he likes social media, so he had all his socials, but that is a major achievement. That is a national or a global organization, I believe. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to that as well. And I feel like it's been a long day. There's been a lot discussed. I'll look forward to our meeting on the 29th, where we'll take up a number of items as well. Thank you.
Sorry, Commissioner Priya.
Good afternoon, everyone. So today we had two lively discussions regarding consolidating our precincts, our voting precincts, and eliminating 6 sites, which I oppose, but that item will be back up for a vote on April 29th. Also up for a public hearing on April 29th will be our climate action and adaptation plan. We had quite a bit of discussion around that today as well. There's a lot of interest across community on this. For both of these items, there were follow-up requests from the commission to have more information, a bit more details ahead of those votes that you all will be able to have access to. I think just with that, it is April, and summer is around the corner, thank goodness. So that means summer programming, summer fun, and so I just want to highlight that the city itself hosts a number of summer programming. We have youth employment programs through Grow 1000. We have some summer melt programming. We invested in some youth violence reduction programming today. Plus tons of special events, as you all know. So I just want to bring your attention to that. A lot of those applications applications are now open. So you folks in your community, in your schools, we have to keep our young people busy and engaged with enrichment activities and around supportive, loving adults. And so just encourage you all to tap into those resources. And if you have any questions or need help getting to them, I'm happy to help. Just reach out to kpurdue@grcity.us, and I'll make sure you get connected. With that, we'll see you later this month.
Commissioner Belchick?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you to my fellow colleagues. We have had in the trenches conversations today. So for anyone who thinks that we come here prepared with our votes already, please know we are having lively debates and discussion. And like some of you who did public comment, I don't always know what I'm going to say either. And we show up and we do it anyway. So thank you for that. In addition to the April 29th public hearing that we're going to be having on the environmental plan, the CAP as it's called, which I do encourage people to be a part of, we're also holding a public hearing about the naming of Plaza Roosevelt. So that is worth being a part of the conversation and having your voice heard as a public hearing. It's the first park that will be named since 2011, and we don't always get a new opportunity to have a new green space in our community. So wanted to put that out there. I also heard today that we're going to have a public tree planting in honor of Arbor Day, which was announced today, and the mayor did a wonderful declaration on that. So April 25 and 26, we're expecting volunteers and people to come out with Friends of Grand Rapids Parks and our city parks, planting over 250 trees, hopefully, to getting people to take away trees. And also that same weekend, we have the citywide cleanup, which is sponsored originally by West Grand Neighborhood Organization, but has spread to all the neighborhood organizations across the city. So if you're looking for ways to make a difference in our community, in addition to any free speech you want to be holding, make sure you show up and get your elbows in the trenches with us and get those trees planted, get the gutters picked up, get our streets cleaned, get our alleys cleaned, and keep looking for ways to be a part of this, because our community is only as good as we are. I know I say it all the time, but we are GR. It's the name of our magazine, newspaper, and there's a reason. I really believe that we have to be looking here in our neighborhood next to each other as we talk, as we get to know each other and get real work done, because we live in a world that has to be built from the bottom up. Whatever else happens, we need to be building for the future. And I think that's what the hard discussions that we're doing here are. It's also the hard discussions that I've heard challenged from the public, from you guys here in these meetings, and also the town halls that I've been able to participate in with Marshall Kilgore and Commissioner Knight. We were a part of something last week, a couple weeks ago. And so we're hearing you, and we're one in line with you, even when it sounds like we're not, because we're trying to figure out the realistic ways of implementing things. So those are my thoughts right now. And please go hug someone after you get home tonight.
Commissioner Robbins?
Yeah, thanks. Mayor, I hope I'm not taking City Manager's thunder in this one too, but this morning at our fiscal committee, our city comptroller introduced our new deputy city comptroller, who just joined us from the city of Lansing. She, what's that? Oh, I was going to say, she was here. I saw her at some point, but if she's watching online, just wanted to extend a warm welcome on behalf of the fiscal committee and the commission as well.
Commissioner Knight?
Nothing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner
That's the
Kilgore.
default to me.
I was going to say that's never happened before. Commissioner Kilgore.
Oh, it has.
Yes, it has. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And once again, I think it's quite an honor to have the spirited conversations that we have. I think it's for the betterment of our community as a whole to go back and forth, and they should be informed by the folks who we represent. So I had a really good experience with constituents on my first stop of my listening tour in February for Black History Month. The next one is going to be later on in May. We're still planning that, but it's going to be focused on how we can invest in our youth, how we can invest in the future future of our community, because that is something time and time again folks come to us and say that they'd like to see as investment in youth. And I'm happy that through our CDBG work group that we've been able to do that and been able to set some goals for how we want to help our youth. But that's something that I just want to loop people in, and please stay updated with me on social media and my website to talk about that next meeting. I also want to talk about one of our spirited conversations, which was the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. So my previous role as the Director of Engagement for the West Michigan Environmental Action Council, this was my work 24/7, and what I've seen, we had an 8-county coverage of, we were talking to West Michiganders every single day about how we were going to address deep-rooted issues such as climate change. So I know firsthand the deep need that we need for a plan like the CAP, but I also heard truly the concerns for a metered approach to how we combat climate change from my colleagues today. So I'm encouraging everyone at our next meeting to participate, give your feedback, both folks who are environmental advocates, but we also received a letter from some business folks today talking about their concerns about some of the undue stress that they would face from this plan. To make really informed decisions, we need every perspective on this. I also want to highlight here lastly what I said, though, of yes, we want to be metered. We want to have actionable things that we can tackle and that are low-hanging fruit, for lack of better words, but we also want to have something you reach for, something to strive for, a North Star, to say that we are the second largest city in Michigan, meaning that we are a leader whether we like it or not. So some of these things, yes, we want to, maybe we won't meet it completely, but it'll be able to benchmark and show us where we're at, how far we need to go, and show other communities who don't have half of the investments that we've had, you need to start, right? Because climate change isn't going anywhere. And I'm happy that the conversation was not to axe this plan, not to not move forward on it, but we need to be metered, and we need to hear directly from folks who are going to be affected by this, our community, what you want to see, what are action items, what's the most important for this community. So I'm very happy to continue that conversation, and thank you all for being here today.
City Clerk?
Just to let folks in the audience know that this work on the precinct consolidation is not in haste, not in any way that I just decided yesterday that we're going to do this. Our team has been working on this since late 2023. But we wanted to wait until we had the 2024 elections were done before we put this plan out to the public and went for approvals, because we wanted to see what early voting actually entailed. So I just want to let you know that it wasn't in haste or this is a quick reaction to something else. It just happens to coincide with other things that are happening nationally. And a lot of times we have those confluences of things that are happening nationally or in a state level or a local level, and it seems like it all kind of flows together at a certain time, but at no time was that, it just happened to be that way. So it wasn't a quick rash discussion. I've been looking at these maps and working through these numbers for over a year now, so or longer. So with that, and it's hard to believe that this month I'll be celebrating my 7th anniversary in this role as city clerk. So some days it seems like it's been a long time, and other times it's been a snap of a finger. So it's been a true honor and pleasure to be here this long, and I plan on at your will to be here a lot longer. So thanks for that, and thank goodness we're getting some spring weather here finally. Thanks. Have a great day.
Deputy City Attorney? City Manager?
I didn't know if Joel was about to make a retirement announcement or something. That's the way he set that up, his last comments. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for your work, and of course all the staff for the work that's been contributing to the public for showing up here. Just a couple comments on the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. I heard the robust discussion this morning and just wanted to remind the Commission that while the hearing is anticipated set up for the schedule for the next city commission meeting and the vote is anticipated in May, we do not have to actually vote that day. If there's more deliberation and work that the commission itself would like to have, we could certainly schedule more staff briefings and based on the feedback that we hear from both the public hearing and you. So I just want to assure you we're not trying to force or hurry a decision and want to make sure that we give both you and the public ample time for careful deliberation. The other thought, the Grow 1000 Summer Youth Employment, it's a matter of urgency in that the application deadline is April 25th. So for all the youth that are looking for an employment opportunity from the ages of 15 to 24, we would love to have you work with us both in our Grow 1000 as well as our college program as well. And our Community's Children is working now to both connect employers and youth with summer work sites for 20 hours a week. So please go online and apply. I do want to thank the staff today at the Economic Development Project team for both the briefing on the polls as well as to highlight that 2024 was a record year for economic development in terms of construction value, and the value of construction in the city was over $700 million, almost $800 million. That almost doubles, close to our pre-pandemic levels, and is really positive for the kind of income tax growth, job growth, and things that provides resources for not only our community individual, but resources and revenue for our government to operate. So looking forward to the continued inclusive growth of our city. Real quickly on the comment, I won't speak to the matters related to the trial. I want to be real respectful of the judicial process, but just note that both on the documentary and the trial, there's one thing both have in common while people are trying to link them. The city did not schedule the date for either one. Both dates for the trial done independently, as well as the release of the documentary. And while we were going to both cooperatively participate as we need to as witnesses in the trial, we also did voluntarily participate in, the police department did in the development of the documentary, but did not schedule the timing or release of that. That was independently done. There were no city resources used to produce it. I've heard that question a lot, and so I did want to just share that very publicly, and the chief can go into more detail if there are any questions. He's at the end of the room, back of the room there. Relative to a very peaceful protest that was at Rosa Park Circle some days ago with over 3,500 people there. We want to honor constitutional First Amendment rights and are glad when our residents are engaged in exercising their constitutional rights. And Commissioner Sassi asked about the surveillance. My recollection, and just confirming with the chief, that there was no surveillance needed that day because things were so peaceful. So no drones were deployed. So just wanted to make that known to the public. There was, I think, one incident, but that happened prior to the actual rally itself. And in summary, maybe closing on a high note, Valley Field, I think we're on schedule, according to our Parks Director, to get that project done this year, by the end of the year. I know there's been a lot of the delays been attributed to whether or not some of the current infrastructure there could be used or rebuilt totally, and I think the architects, engineers have found a solution to rehabilitate some of the existing structures there, and so we look forward to having yet another restored amenity in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. So thanks everyone for being here. I want to talk on three topics briefly. With regard to the upcoming trial, I think it's important to take a civics moment here. So the 3,000 people who came and protested against the current federal administration, that makes a world of sense because we've got federal elected officials who are doing things that are deeply troubling to a lot of us, and they are, after all, elected officials. Trials are such a radical example of democracy that I think in human history, it's hard to believe that we in the United States actually do this. But it's an incredibly democratic process. What happens in a trial is 12 randomly selected members of the community are sworn to analyze the law, analyze the facts, and make a decision. What that means is it's so democratic, it's not government action. So, and it's also really important that those 12 people are allowed to make that decision without undue influence, without pressure, which is one of the reasons why picking a jury in America can sometimes be very hard. But it's worth us, I think, at this point, remembering in advance of the trial, whatever happens, being proud of the fact that we live in a country where we are actually willing to delegate application of the law to members of the community, not to someone who we've decided to give power to, not to judges, not to prosecutors, not to city elected officials, not to federal elected officials, but to 12 random members of the community. I can't imagine anything more democratic than the right to trial by jury. So that's something, frankly, that as hard as I expect this whole process to be for the community, I think it's appropriate to remember how foundationally democratized the administration of justice is in this country so far. The other thing I want to touch on is one of my frustrations, and it's a frustration of a lot of people who are thinking right now. And there was the question of Valley Field and why is it taking so long. My first reaction to that is sort of the old bureaucratic take a number. This is an endemic problem in our community right now. So when you ask why does Valley Field take so long, constructing the Empire State Building took a year. But over time, we have gotten more and more veto points in our decision-making process, more and more places where you have to ask permission, you have to file a report, you have to do a study, you have to get 18 levels of government involved. And so if you look at, unfortunately, I think a disappointment to a lot of us was we had to pause the permitting process for our river work because there's this interplay between the federal government and the state government and who gives permits and who doesn't get permits. So I was really proud of this commission a couple of weeks ago because we sped up the process for permitting of a couple things at the city level and just sent them back to planning and said, if these are simple, just let people do them. They don't have to fill out forms. They shouldn't have to ask permission. If there are things that are not going to put anybody in danger, they're not going to endanger anybody's health. I think thematically we want to be living in a community where government serves people better, and sometimes that means not putting more and more and more requirements in place. Sometimes when you want to help, you think, let's build a bunch of regulations, and sometimes that's not the best way to respond to things. So I think that's true, particularly in the construction space right now. A lot of people are realizing that time matters. People would like to be able to use that park again before they die of old age. But that's true of a lot. So I know that this commission is generally going to be focused on speed of process and streamlining processes and re-examining assumptions that have been around for decades that maybe don't make sense anymore, like the requirement that you can't have native plantings in your front yard of your house. Well, nobody was doing native plantings in the 50s, but now a lot of people want to do it, so we should probably get rid of the ban on native plantings. So we're with you on that. The last thing I want to talk about is we do have a climate action plan that's in process and being discussed, and I am concerned, having spent decades of my life working on environmental action, I am often really frustrated there by the speed of progress too. I'm frustrated by how little solar I see in Grand Rapids, for example, after decades of talking about it and after the technology being mature and cost effective, we just don't see movement. And so you can go back and look at the comments that I made at the earlier meeting, but I want to point out for everyone that for me, at the end of the day, if we're dealing with environmental issues particularly, we should be making sure that our responses scale up to the need, and so that we don't do performative things, we do transformative things. And that means not applauding when we get 2 houses with solar panels on them. The scale of the problem is vastly bigger than that. And so, but the trick is sometimes if you set really aspirational goals with no real ideas or no real teeth in how you get there, then the plans just fail and you sort of move on. And so I'm really, really concerned that we dot our I's and cross our T's, that we think about what steps will actually instantiate that. And I'm certainly committed to keeping working on that. But the other thing that's worth pointing out here is we often talk about a climate crisis. It's not a crisis in the same way, say, the pandemic was. One of the things that I often say about our response to the pandemic was, if you've got a really acute problem and you respond to it right then, you're going to make a lot of mistakes because you don't have time to think about how to do it perfectly. So a lot of things we did during the pandemic to respond didn't turn out to be the right responses. We really had an acute crisis. Lots of people were dying, so we were doing a lot of things. Not all of them in retrospect were the right things. Turns out we probably didn't need to bleach all of our groceries. But at the time, you do everything you can and you respond because you have an acute crisis. On the issue of environmentalism and climate change, I think it's really important that we get it right, not that we get it fast. And so I hope that as we keep moving forward on this, we think about our commitment to getting things right and to doing things that are going to take us years and potentially decades, but that we name reasonable goals and achievable goals and then meet those goals. And if we exceed them, that's fine. I wanted to run the Chicago Marathon in 3 hours. I wouldn't have been unhappy if I'd run it in 2 hours and 40 minutes. So I think that how we have this conversation, it's important that we instantiate our goals so that we don't sort of wash our hands of failure. And so that's what I expect all of us to be committed to in the coming months, but I wanted to let the public know. So on that note, let's end.